see that how to design the pedagogical approach. I have just talked about that what is pedagogy and how pedagogy can help to develop the uh, uh, you know self-determined learner. But now come to the next step, that how that design can be developed or how it can be processed. Pedagogic design process, where to begin in realizing pedagogic design in your classroom and training environment. So you have to explore it, you have to design it. As I have already said, that this approach is not suitable in all the areas, in all the discipline. You have to identify the content, you have to identify the situation where this approach can be applied. So at first step is to understand the process of designing pedagogy. Next, it is important to understand how to develop pedagogical learning environment. In the first part of the pedagogic design process is defining the learning contract. During this phase, the learner and the teachers work together to identify learning needs and outcomes. Uh, Friends, in our Indian education system, um, we most of the times we follow the structured curriculum. Structured curriculum means which are been approved and designed, pre-designed, and we have a very little freedom to modify, or very little freedom to you know deviate it from the structured curriculum to the humanistic curriculum. The in university level, little bit deviation can be accepted, but in the undergraduate level, the deviations are not permitted. But in humanistic curriculum, what happened? The teachers and students discuss together and they decide together that what they will learn and what and how they will learn and what will be their outcome. So before the session begin, or before the course, or before the classes begin, they will decide that what they are going to learn and why they will going to learn. The need needs to be explored, and what will be the outcomes. What are the learner wants to learn and achieve? What should be the result of learning experiences? We have, we never bother about these questions, that what will be the outcomes. Although now the UGC has mandated the curriculum should be outcome based, but it's very difficult in some subjects to identify the outcomes, but it can be. It's not that it is impossible, but it is possible. But the student and teachers can decide together to identify the outcome. In addition, specific course or program learning outcomes that may be required by the institutional environment should be taken into consideration. Next, the learner and teachers negotiate the assessment process. Once the content, the process, as well as the outcomes are decided, then the teacher and students can decide together, but how they are going to learn it, the process, as well as the assess it, how they will assess it, outcomes. In other words, how do we know that learning has been achieved? That is very much essential. Without assessment, your teaching learning process or the learning process of the uh, learner is not fulfilled. Okay. So the learning assessment is very much important. The curriculum should be then adopted to the learning outcomes as well as throughout the learning process. At the end of this part of the process, the learner contract is created and agreed upon. All these things needs to be discussed along with the teachers, and they can proceed to the next. So this is the structure, or this is the design process. You see, the first of all, the learning contracts, you have to identify the learning needs and outcomes, negotiate the assessment. It's not the teacher will alone decide what will be the assessment process. Rather, it has to be decided along with the learner, that how the learning will be assessed of the learner. Adapt curriculum, you can adapt some of the curriculum for this purpose. The second, the learning activities, you have to proceed to the next. Identify the resource from where you can get the ideas, from where you can access the knowledge. The resource needs to be identified. Identify the identify and develop learning skills, what kind of learning skills you're going to achieve from this, then design learning activities to develop that skill, what kind of learning activities would be required. Okay, it depends and it varies from subject to subject. In engineering subject, science subject, humanities subject, language subjects, the learning skills to be different. Accordingly, you need to decide what kind of learning activities would be chosen. Provide formative feedback. If possible, the learner needs to be given the feedback, and the learner has to develop the self-reflection. How that self-reflection should be fulfilled and developed when they will just go through this following process, they can reflect it, they can develop their self-reflection. And finally, the last process, that is the learning outcome. Assess learning outcomes, demonstrate competencies and skills. Um, that is very much essential, that what skill you have developed, and it has to be demonstrated, and it should be demonstrated skills that is there. There are certain principles for designing heterogeneous approach. If you want to apply your heterogeneous approach in your classroom or in your learning situation, you need to follow these principles. Learners needs to be involved in negotiating what and how they learn throughout the design and learning process. In present cases, in traditional cases, what happen? The faculty members or the teachers decides what the students will learn. But if you wanted to adopt the pedagogical approach, then before conducting the class or before the learning is begin, you have to discuss with the students, negotiate it. Curricula should be flexible and take into account learners' questions and motivation, and how thinking shifts as a result of things they have learned. Friends, I have already said that there are two types of curriculums we adopt. One is structured curriculum and other is humanistic curriculum. The pedagogic approach is not very much suitable in structured curriculum. Rather, it would be suitable in humanistic curriculum, where the things can be decided, after the discussion with the learner. So the curriculum should be flexible. It is not that it is very much rigid and you cannot deviate anything from that. So that principle should be followed. Your institution must have that freedom to that. The learner and the teacher need to work together to negotiate how learning outcomes will be assessed. If there is a scope in your curriculum, in your system, that the teacher and students can decide about the assessment process, then only it is possible. Otherwise, not. Evaluation could also include the forms of participative, self and peer evaluation. It may be individual evaluation, it may be peer group of evaluation, allowing learners to learn from each other and through self-reflection. Group performance can be given, group works can be given. From there, the assessment can be done. The role of the teacher is to guide the learner here, providing formative feedback that is personalized according to the learner needs. It should go along with the learner, that how they have learned, and the formative feedback should be given, and as per their space, as per their ability, as per their capability, the feedback should be given. You should not expect the similar kind of performance from the all learners. The learning environment needs to be incorporate opportunities for learner to explore and reflect on what they have learned and how. That opportunities must be there, as I have already said, to explore more and to reflect. The certain elements are there in this pedagogic approach, uh, that elements needs to be followed by the faculty members or in teaching learning process, that are designed in this diagram, that heterogenetic approach or heterogenetic design requires explore, create, collaborate, connect, reflect, and share. So what is that explore? In heterogenetic approach, the fundamental to heterogeneity is the element of exploration. You must give the learners enough freedom and opportunity to explore a variety of path and sources of knowledge on their journey. They need to be able to develop and test hypotheses. You should give that freedom and ask and answer questions. Let them ask questions. Let them find out the answer of that questions. Explore the answer of that questions. So this is the first elements. The second point, that is the create. Design element, uh, the create. The pedagogical approach gives the enough freedom to the learner to create. So how they'll create, what they will create, it may be create means their ideas, their skills. It may be in written form, it may be in drawing form, or they may design. It depends on the subject to subject. So let them explore or let them create something. If they have create some question, it's okay, fine. If they have create some ideas, okay, it's fine. If they have create some design, okay, it's fine. If they have create some drawing, particular designs they have created, so that must be given. That must freedom should be given to the learner to create, and different platform may be used for that purpose, how they will create it. Okay. Nowadays, you see in ICT enabled society, there are number of platforms are there where they can show or they can expose their creativity, and they can show their what they have learned and what they have created. The third important element which is required in pedagogical approach, that is collaborate. Learning take place with collaboration. If you collaborate, if you allow your learners to collaborate with other students, other colleagues, they can learn better. So collaboration should be allowed in the class or in the department or your institution. So more number of collaboration. So collaboration may be again, maybe in different forms. It may be in so different social media groups are available nowadays to collaborate with other students, collaborate among the students, collaborate with other institution students. In that way, that will give the platform to explore the world, to share their creates, as well as to learn from others. Okay, if you allow your students to learn from others, then that will be better for their development. The network and connections are a critical aspect within pedagogy. That is the connect. As it is though these connections that new avenues of learning can be created. Making connection is easy with today's social media, which gives learners an opportunity to network with people across the world. So let them connect with the rest of the world so that they can learn for the next, that is the share. Once learners have started connecting, you know, they can begin sharing. And numerous, the ICT facility has enabled us to share, our thoughts, our ideas, our articles, our papers. Nowadays, it can be easily shared, like ResearchGate, SlideShare, Twitter, Facebook. These are some of the platform through which they can share their development, their ideas, what they have learned, And if everybody shares it, then uh, you know from each other they will learn. And finally, another important elements for heterogeneal design, that is the reflect. Within every pedagogic learning environment, learners need to have opportunity to reflect. This is where there is a potential for new learning to occur and previous learning to be considered. Reflection provides an opportunity to ascend to higher level of cognitive activity such as analysis and synthesis. This reflective activity should include reflecting on the new knowledge that the learner has gained, as well as how he or she has learned and the ways in which these learning experiences has influenced his or her value systems and beliefs. So that reflection is another important. There should be scope in the classroom or in your approach, in your teaching approach, how to reflect about their learning, what they have learned. Come to the next, that process of implementation. If you want to implement it, the elements needs to be followed, the principle needs to be followed, the design process needs to be followed. Along with that, what will be the other um, the process? Let me share that ideas. Self-determined learning doesn't underestimate or ignore the existing system of education, as I have already said again and again. Rather, it offers the desired learning form it suits the best. And those who wish to employ and accept it as the opportunity to learn in the most fulfilling and satisfying way. It is up to you. You have to decide the content, the place, or the learner even. If your learner, the one important criteria the learner must have, that is the skilled. If they are not skilled enough with ICT and other content, then this method will not be suitable. In order to implement pedagogy, self-determined learning environment must be created. If the learning environments are not congenial in your institution, then better not to use the pedagogical approach. But is that learning environment, more and more freedom should be given, and your institution should allow that much freedom in your institution. The institution and the teachers have only to provide the contact and continuous support to the learner. If you do that, then other will feel that teacher is not teaching, is not going to the classes. That will not work. That environment should be there. The following process must be executed systematically to implement pedagogic in practice. That first thing, generating learning contracts, we have already discussed in the design. The learning contracts should be decided again along with the faculty and students, and the curriculum must be flexible for that. Creating flux towards open learning environment. You have to have the open learning environment. It's not that from the classroom only they will learn. They can learn from any source. That much freedom, that much opportunity should be given, and it has to be accepted. Encouraging reflection. If you do not allow your students to share their reflection, what they have learned, what they have not learned, if you do not allow them to reflect, then better not to implement it. For implementation, that provision should be there. Empowering collaboration. Collaboration, uh, as I have already said, that these are some of the important points needs to be there. Okay, now what are the benefits we may get from the pedagogical approach? Does it really work, or does it has some points to be learned, or it is just for sake of discussion? Learners become self-motivated and highly engaged with learning, as the content is according to their own choice, opposite to what is dictated by pre-decided structured curriculum. So what benefit will get? The students will be self-motivated. How? When you allow your students, your learner, to engage with you, to decide the content, to decide the process, as well as to decide the assessment process. If you allow them to discuss or involve them in this process, automatically they will be self-motivated. You need not to motivate them, rather they will be self-motivated. Means they have also contributed, they have also given their ideas in that respect. Learners develop the ability to investigate, questioning things, and critically think before accepting anything. So we always talked about the critical thinking, creative thinking that should be developed among the learner. We must be developed the questioning capacity among the learners. We always encourage it. But if you do not give the scope, how these qualities will be developed? The problem lies with our education system. Hardly we encourage our students to share their questions, to ask their questions. You forget about your higher education system. You just imagine the primary level and secondary level education, which is highly research dominated, research centric. The no freedoms are given to the learner. The young learner, they have lot of questions, but those questions are not um, they're not allowed to share their question, ask their questions. So ultimately what happened, that quality are not developed properly. But in pedagogical approach, again we can give that opportunity among the learner to question more and more question, and we also allow them to explore the answer too. If you have the question, then okay, you explore the answer. So it encourages them to explore more and more. Ability to adapt in different changing learning situation. That means capability development occurs through pedagogical practices. It depends on situation, it varies from situation. It not necessary that the same techniques would be applied in the next class or the same group in other classes. No, it varies. So as per the capability of the learner, you have to adapt it. Pedagogy also helps learner to develop lifelong learning skills in order to create sustainable learning environment. Friends, we have to be a lifelong learner. At the beginning, my title has been designed in that way. Lifelong learning. So whatever we have learned till our master's level or graduation level, that is not enough. That is not enough for the survival in the job, the survival in the your employment. For that you need to be continuous learner. You have to be learner, and the pedagogical approach, if you developed in your degree in your higher education system, that students will be oriented in that way, and they can later part, they can explore their life and they can explore the world through that approach. Pedagogy encourages personal development through development of independent thinking and self-confidence, and developing self-learning skill. We often talked about the self-learning skill, but hardly that scope has been given to the students. But this approach will allow the students to develop their self-learning skills and self-confidence. Independent thinking, that skill can be developed. Pedagogy provides the scope for social justice in education. This makes the democratization of learning opportunities by making learning personalized at individual level. Through that approach, we can respect the individual thinking. We can respect the democratic ideas in the classroom. Democracy means everybody has the equal right, equal freedom, equal responsibility. So that these qualities can be enhanced, can be developed through pedagogical approach. Learners become so fascinated that observed by their learning as they go through according to their area of interest and they invest more and more time on learning. If you have more interest on that, definitely you will spend more and more time on that. If you do not have the interest on your content, you will try to use your list time. So since the students are involved in the selection of the content, selection of the process, and selection of the assessment, they have the interest, and thereby we can expect a more time on the learning process. The learning is no longer seen in terms of burden or requirement, but becomes a pleasurable and inherently rewarding experiences that is possible in pedagogical approach. A pedagogical learning environment facilitates development of capable learners and emphasizes both the development of learner competencies as well as development of the learner's capability and capacity to learn. We can emphasize in all these aspects. We can improve the competency, we can improve the capability for more and more learning. Now, what are the challenges? I think I have come to the end of my discussion. What are the challenges we might have while implementing the pedagogical approach in the teaching learning process? Generally, students like to consume teaching as their path of learning. They are conditioned by existing concept of teaching and learning, so they do not easily accept such self-determined approach. It is obvious. If you ask your students now, when they come to the university, come to the college, if you ask them, you ask more and more questions, they will be silent. Why they will be silent? Because they are accustomed with the traditional systems. They are habituated to the traditional system, so they never open up their mouths. They are never open up to share their ideas. So that is one of the big challenges at the beginning. So you may not be successful at the beginning, but in the latter part, definitely it will work. They become reluctant to come out from their comfort zone and to accept learning in a self-determined way. If you ask them whatever you wish you learn, then it will be useless for them at the beginning. But if you orient in that way later on, then they will learn it. As discussed earlier, Stuart Hayes believes that pedagogy doesn't only mean for adult learner, it is applicable for young learners also. But always there is a question whether pedagogy can be applied for school children. Will it work for them? So some small scale experiment may be carried out, but it will be possible. But the entire system has to be redesigned. Then it can be even applied in the school level also. We have the experience that when we go for the in our teaching education program, we have the B.Ed course, and if you go when we go for the practice teaching, then we see that a lot of questions are being asked by the school children. But those questions, if those questions are not entertained properly, but they will not be encouraged. In formal education system, the concerned institution have the authority to make decision about giving certificate and degrees. From this perspective, it is difficult to cope with the issue of self-assessment, obviously, of learning by the students in pedagogical learning process. If you decide of your own what will be the assessment technique, your university or institutions may not accept the assessment process, and which may hamper your degree and certificates. So this is one of the challenges, demerits, but if that scope is there in the institution, obviously it can be applied. Success of pedagogy depends solely upon the individual personality, characteristics of learner. Learners with lack of self-motivation and self-confidence may feel self-determined learning as a great challenge. Consequently, they may not be able to come out from their comfort zone, and they may feel better to sit and learning in the traditional way. Yes, if the students are not self-motivated, self-confident, they will remain silent and they will not participate in your teaching process, and ultimately this process will not work, you know, as it should be. So finally, in conclusion, I can just say pedagogy being A form of self-determined learning allows learner to enjoy full autonomy to learn according to their individual needs and interests. Pedagogy also catalyzes learner towards growing as lifelong learner by fostering self-learning skill, increasing capacity to learn and developing capability to learn in new situation. However, there are many hurdles towards implementation of pedagogy in formal education system. In order to reap the benefits, we need to accept that the role of teachers in a pedagogical model would deploy scaffolding in which they support learners' progression towards competencies and provide opportunities for them to accomplish capabilities. So, with this hope, I'd like to conclude here. I hope that this approach, this pedagogical approach, if you wish to adopt in your own platform, then obviously you can get the fruits because a lot of researches are being carried on that issues, and it is found that really it is working and really it is very fruitful, and you can lessen your burdens. You can lessen your burdens. You need not to go to the classes and deliver the lecture and lectures, but you can design some of the portion of your lesson or of your curriculum, and you can give the responsibility to the learner, and you can see that they will be learning, and they will explore the world of knowledge. So with this, thank you very much. uh, if you have any queries, then I can just listen from you. Thank you very much.
Sir,
Hello, sir.
can I ask, sir, first?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Sir, quite an interesting talk, quite relevant to some of our disciplines like law. Now, I have two small questions for you, sir. Now, is this particular approach an advanced version of the banking concept of education used by Paulo Freire? That's the first question, sir. And the second question is, the new education policy prescribes which approach to education? That's all, sir. Thank you.
Okay. uh, so your first question, that whether it is similar to the banking systems or not. So banking approach, so that is something different. I think there might be some similarity because ultimately all these are teaching approach. you know if you just see the all teaching approach, then some similarities you will find, in even in pedagogy, in andragogy and hedagogy. But it's not necessary that all are same, but minor differences are there. But in banking approach, if you have seen that in banking approach, their aspects are something different, and in heterogeneal approach the approaches are some different, but there are some similarity might be there to some extent. But in heterogeneity, it is the very latest one, I can say, the very latest one, and it has been proved in various disciplines, even in medical profession, and in some other profession also this approach has been adopted. And very recently one research has come out uh, to support this pedagogical approach. I could not share it with you. uh, there is a research evidence, even from there is a research on the brain structure and how the brain functions, and it has been realized that this structure, and actually students learn themselves. That is the thing. Students learn themselves by nature. We cannot teach, rather students learn themselves, but we can facilitate them, we can just allow them, we can just facilitate them. Otherwise students learn themselves by their own nature. So there might be some similarity, Dr. Sharma. So I am not, opposing in that. But some differences are also there in pedagogical approach. To your second question, that which approach has been prescribed in your new education policy. In new education policy, you see, they have emphasized the constructivist approach. As at the beginning, I have already said that pedagogical approach is grounded on the humanistic as well as constructivist approach. And ultimately, we are switching over to this approach, this pedagogical approach in higher level. You cannot adopt your earlier traditional teaching methods. Ultimately, even this recent national education policy also, they have talked about this constructivist approach. They have given the other name, the constructivist approach, but constructivist approach and this pedagogical approach are more or less same. Okay, more or less same. So they might not have said that pedagogical pedagogical approach, but they have said constructivist approach. So constructivist this approach is depend on constructivist approach and humanistic. And in this present education policy also has given a lot of emphasis on learner's freedom. Even you see in this pedagogical approach also, it has it is supported that learners should be given enough freedom. So in that way, name might be different, but ultimately we are switching over to this pedagogical approach.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So I have a question here. So thank
Thank
you
you.
for this wonderful session. The one question regarding this evaluation. So about the evaluation system, if there is so much of self-learning, self-assessment, so how to evaluate the students, maybe if it comes into the curriculum. So please tell something about it.
In my last part of my discussion, I have said that there are some challenges in pedagogical approach. And in that challenges, one point I have said regarding the evolution. As I have already said, that in our traditional education systems or in our Indian education systems, we follow the structured approach of curriculum. Means everything is structured. Our curriculums are structured, it has been approved by the higher authority, we need to follow in toto all these things. And the design assessment process is also designed at the beginning, that you have to conduct this much test, this way the questions would be there, and this much grading should be like that, everything is structured. But in pedagogical approach, it demands little bit freedom, that the teacher and students will sit together and they will decide that this is the content and this is the process we have adopted. This is the content we have identified and this is the process through which we can learn. And if this is the cases, what will be the learning assessment style? Because students and the teachers know better what will be the best assessment techniques for your the content as well as the process. The similar technique may not be suitable in all the cases. I can refer some of the universities that same assessment techniques are used in all the discipline. I feel that it is a very worst part. It's a worst part. Discipline to discipline, the content are
Yes,
different,
sir.
the process are different. Most of the time, what happened? We just focused about the last part, the outcomes, but we neglect the process part. If you do not give the importance the process, the outcome has no value. If you just with the marks and grade, if you just important give the importance of that, what about the process? How you have taught, how you have learned, what is your process? You see, engineering and suppose humanities, the process are totally different, but we
Yes,
are not giving the importance on that. We are giving the final examination, how the
yes.
examination is conducted, which is similar with the humanities and engineering. But is it appropriate? Just you feel.
So
So
thank you very much
Thank you, sir.
for
Thank you very much, sir.
this brilliant topic. I'm really interested in, and in my own humble way, I have tried. I think so. In PhD courses, especially for humanities, this is a very useful approach. And also, I think it is very useful when it comes to CBCT, and especially when it's interdisciplinary. Suppose, for example, I have developed one on gender. So when we have a student from physics, chemistry, and also for social work, sociology, education, so we sit together and then we decide about how to go in a collaborative way to understand the concept of gender. So that way, if we even if we cannot implement it completely, but in a semi way, in somewhat, no, it could be a mixture of, other pedagogic and then heterogogic approach. And it, at times, it really gives a lot of motivation to students. That's what my observation is. And thank you so much for bringing this topic into this course, because it is really, really, I think, very applicable and relevant, especially at this contemporary time when things are changing so much. Online offline blending is happening, and a lot of technological advancement is happening. So we need to be creative and innovative. So thanks again for that.
Yeah, it really works, and really, Dr. Kondili, I will say, if you just involve your students in your
Yes,
process, not only the with the examination, in your process
yes,
means the learning process. If you
learning
involve
process.
them, really you can enjoy the best.
Yes,
Really you can enjoy, and they will also feel proud. You're
yes,
also
yes.
proud. That matters a lot.
That
It's
sense
not
of involvement and participation is
right.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not matter of the content. What is the content? But if you
Yes,
involve them in the process, they will
totally,
learn
totally.
better.
Yeah.
They will learn better.
Yes.
That is
Thank
the
you.
idea of this pedagogical approach.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful session. But here I have one point to make. It is that, see, suddenly if the students come to the college level and we implement heterogogy, I think it will be a big daunting task for the teachers, because uh, see, the private institutions for professional courses are booming up in this country, and the students now, they don't have to, like for example engineering subject, they don't have to wait for IIT seat. They can go and study anywhere. But then we face a lot of problems, and which I feel that it should start from a very elementary level. And not only that the school teachers has all this thing problems to solve, but I think it should start from home. So we have this parents teachers meet in the schools. So in that time, like instead of teachers telling the parents that your child has scored this one, or your child is not doing good, I think in school level they should create a kind of mentoring to the parents also, how they should guide the students, their children at home. So at home, many of the times, I'm a social linguist by profession, and I find that at home the parents, they always shut their children because they are too talkative, as in mat bolo jada, chup raho. Now that way, you are actually capping the mind of the child right from the formative age. So this has to be taken care of. Only then we can think of in higher education how the learners can be self motivated learner. I think this has to be, it's a crucial thing that suddenly in higher education we come and implement all those things. It doesn't work. We see a lot of college dropouts, not interested to come to the class. They don't attend the classes. They fairly do well in this thing, assignments. Sometimes they don't attend this assignments or group discussions. So it becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let me just share my own thoughts in this regard, and you're very much correct, ma'am, that there is a challenge, and in the challenge part, I have already shared this. Is that if you suddenly begin with this approach, then lot of issues will come in front of you. But the thing is, we have to start, we have to begin somewhere. And I hope this is the best platform. And if we can orient ourselves, at least, that is my belief. If we can orient ourselves, and we are, you see, our outputs, what will be our outputs? Our outputs would be like, t-shirts. Our outputs would be like, in different professions they will go in later on. So when they will go to their own system, definitely they will use their own. Perhaps we have not learned all these things during our education, during our graduation or master's level. We have not learned it, but we are exploring it, and we are just transforming these ideas to our next generation. And thereby, when they will go to that level, when again the school, then secondary, I think that in that way we can just shift. That way we can be successful a little bit. Yes, In school level, really, I feel so bad sometimes the way the teaching learning process has been taken place. It's completely, mark oriented, and it should not be happen like that. And thereby, what we're doing, we're just killing the creativity of the, child. The childs are very much creative, but we never allows them to, share, to, expose that. So I think the parents as well as the school level teachers must be, orient in that, and they should give the scope, and they should get the platform even to the students, so that they can also share, and they can also ask more and more questions to explore the world. That environment should be created. And for that reason, in refresher courses and other places where teachers are attending, these kind of concepts are being given, so that you can deliver, you can share your ideas to your students, and ultimately they will go to the field, and in that way we can build our society. So that is
See,
my.
see, sir, see, during our times, we did not have internets and all, but we had to run from library to library to collect materials. And this heterogeneity is nothing new actually for us, because we are also self-motivated learners. But somewhere, during this decades, from 80s to like today's 21st century, there was a sharp fall of this learning system, because the students are getting ready-made answers because they want to compete. School has become a kind of a business center. So I think so many things are there which is playing in the society, and suddenly if we just put this pressure, the students in higher education feel pressurized. They don't want to study anymore. So this is something I think it is nothing new, which I feel it was already there in the 70s, 80s, 90s. I think we all studied, in a self-motivated. There were no classes like this. Attendance was not a common feature. You just have to appear for the exam. All these things were there.
Yeah. Any more?
Yes, sir. Hi, sir. This is Vineet. I'm calling from Sharda University. So again, you emphasize more on the learning process, but and something like it says that nothing can be taught, everything has to be learned. So in this context, if the onus is on the student, then where exactly the faculty fit in, right? So if the entire emphasis is on learning of the student, and he or she is the one who is supposed to like take a cue, they have to take the responsibility, then where exactly the faculty comes in the picture? Thank you.
Yeah. So even my conclusion part also, I have said that this is not the replacement of the traditional. Okay, you might have noticed that it's not the, complete replacement. Rather, it might be one of the, techniques, or one of the approach which could be applied. Okay, so teacher's role we cannot, we should not ignore. Teacher's role is there, and teacher's role would be there, okay, in future. And the teachers only will give the opportunity. If there is no teachers who will give that opportunity, teachers only will give the opportunity in that way. So it's not that each and every content and everything can be taught by this heterogeneal approach. I have said that there are some limitation with that approach. There are some concepts are there, there are some subjects are there. This approach is not at all suitable, not at all suitable. But certain areas are there where it can be, it can be.
Sir, thank you so much for a very insightful presentation today. So I have just one question. How do you look at the accountability of the students in this entire process of self-learning? Because I teach German as foreign language, and I see when I give them you have a prepared syllabus, you have a prepared course curriculum, but when I give them an opportunity to bring some topics that they would be interested in from their own environment, from their own cultural context, then it gives them more, it makes, um, I always feel that they're more interested in the topic, and rather than bringing some topic from German cultural background, from Germany. So I always feel that the accountability goes more on the students when they choose also, when they select also few topics from their own cultural background, from their own political interests. And how do you look at this choice, and as well as how do you look at the accountability part, which I think in this self-learning process goes on students more when they participate.
So, so I will say that like this self-motivated, if students are not self-motivated, you know, if you're not uh, interested, if your everything is forcefully given to them, then definitely they will not be self-motivated. So that, you see, in higher education, the students are what you can say, they're self-motivated. You know, the discipline they have chosen, the areas they have identified. You know, these are from their own choice and from their own interest. When you have the interest, I think they should do well. And if someone is not doing well, um, it's up to them. But I think in higher education level, that problem is less in accountability. You know, most of the students are found to be more and more accountable because they are very serious about their profession, about their career, about their life, about their future. You know, most of the, there might be few, you know, they are maybe because of due to some other pressure and they have chosen, but most of them, you know, are self accountable. You need not to say anything, you know, you not know that you follow this, you follow that. So in that, if someone is there, definitely teachers can play a get role. You know, he can become the guide. That's all. Like we play our role in our supervising the research scholar. The research scholar go here and there, but we guide them in properly and it become normal then. So this is my understanding.
So may I add something? Like I'm speaking from Sriram College of Commerce. I'm Padmeshwar Dole. I
Yes.
have certain points which I have felt like I wanted to share with this. Uh, like there are a lot of divides in terms of urban and rural uh, like atmosphere, and you said that certain degree of maturity is also required among students in order to implement this process which you have narrated to us, described us. And if assessment part is a great like question mark in such kind of environment. So if you would like to implement it all across the country, irrespective of this divide, so don't you think that it would bring in a lot of like issues of even discrimination also is an issue. Like secondly, you can note out in India we have a lot of caste divides and your communal divides. So that also would come into play in terms of assessment, isn't it? So these are the points which I would like to share with this approach. There is a lot of difficulties in trying to adapt this process into these educational institutions, given the kind of prevailing atmosphere across the country. So
Uh,
this is all I have to say. Yeah.
yeah, of course, there are some difficulty, and I am also not in favor of applying this approach across the country.
Yeah.
Personally, I am also not in favor, and again, I am saying that there are some delimitation with this limitations we have. You have to decide. Or you have to decide your area, your students, your content. You have to apply it. Certain things can be even in the rural area also. If you wish, then it can be, but it should not be universal kind.
Yeah, that is what uh, I thought that that could be a problem if you extend it to all over the country, like
No, no.
thinking that same degree of maturity and same degree of privilege exists everywhere. So that could be a serious problem to our educational system.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
can in turn lead to a lot of dropouts also.
Yeah. So another thing I'd like to say here, you see, at the beginning, perhaps whether you have noticed or not, I said that as a teaching professional, it is our attempt, it is our strives to become very effective in the
Yeah,
classroom.
true.
Everyone tries to be. Now, if you wanted to be like others, then it's something different. But if you wanted to be little bit extra, then you have to do something extra. So this is in addition to your traditional. That is what.
Yeah, agreed fully.